Hello, and welcome to the podcast. Every moment is sacred, where we interweave meditation and healing into everyday life. I am your host, Rain Elizabeth Stickney. Now, let us begin. We all have a brave story in us. By listening to others' stories, we too can gain more courage. Kristina Driscoll trained for a career in finance, working over 10 years in pension consulting and as a financial advisor. When their son was 5 years old, Kristina's husband was diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's, and she became the caregiver to her husband as well as her son, of course. She continued to manage their investments throughout her husband's journey, and Kristina became very, very brave. In my opinion, she was already brave. You will find that she lived life in her way and made decisions that were important to her heart, and she continues to do so today. This interview is filled with light and love, and in fact, it's not really an interview at all, it's a conversation. Kristina has a wonderful podcast called She's Brave, which is available on Apple and Spotify. She helps women find their path to become brave, resilient, and authentic. You will hear at the beginning of our conversation, she mentions my gratitude practice, which I am so delighted to have her in. She and I get to share gratitudes together, as well as all of the other people who are in the gratitude practice called Redwoods and Snow. If you too would like to participate in daily gratitude, simply go to patreon.com/RainElizabeth and sign up. It's a low monthly fee, and you get emails every day with my gratitudes and some other inspirational and delightful material. And you get to choose how you share gratitude in your life as well, whether you share with me or a loved one or in a gratitude journal. I believe that sharing gratitude mends many of the heart's troubles. So try it. Maybe you've already had a gratitude practice on your own, but have you ever shared gratitude? It really changes the game in a good way. So join me for Redwoods and Snow. And this is Kristina Driscoll. I'm so happy to introduce you to her. She is light, filled with sparkles, very inspiring, so kind. And I know you'll love this conversation as much as I do. Hey, Kristina.
Hi, Rain.
It's so wonderful to have you here. I'm so glad that I get a chance to talk with you and hear about your story of healing or anything that you want to share.
I love spending time with you, Rain. It's always really good. You have such a loving, calm presence, and your light just shines so brightly in the world.
Oh, that is so sweet. And it's so funny because I was just commenting on your beautiful light as well.
Well, maybe not the lighting on the podcast, but
No, you have such a lovely gift of generosity and being so honest and vulnerable and also powerful and brave. And I wonder if we could start with some gratitudes. What are you grateful for today?
oh, wow, that's such a good question. Yeah, well, can I just start with this? I just
Yeah.
wanted to say thank you so much. You have a gratitude program that I signed up for. And it's just so interesting because on and off, throughout my adult life, I have had a gratitude practice, but sometimes like I wouldn't be super consistent and it would just kind of like fall off. And I love your program because basically it's just one where I signed up and then every morning you send me an email and it has all the things that you're grateful for. And then, some kind of poem or something written that's beautiful. And I think it's just the way my personality works. Like I never miss a day, right? Like, that.
Yeah,
And
you
I'm
are a
always like,
grateful
okay,
person.
yeah, no, I'm like, okay, I got to jump on. It's part of my morning routine now. I have several things that I do, and I do it every single day, and it feels so good. If there's something to be said about accountability, where
Yes.
I am accountable to you, and it's not in a negative way or a forceful way or anything like that, but it really works.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
lovely practice. And I love sharing with you and I love receiving your gratitudes. And there's a magic in witnessing. So there's accountability and there's also witnessing. And there's something really special that happens when a person is witnessed in their expression of a grateful heart.
Okay, maybe that's what it is. Cause I just honestly, Rain, like I was like, I've never been this consistent about gratitude. And all the studies say how important it is. And it's so just even like, one or two or three things every morning, start your day out.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's such an interesting comment that you made. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up about the practice. And just as a reminder for everyone, the practice started in this way of sharing because I was in a really hard time in 2020, just going through the pandemic and California wildfires and on about various details of my life. And a friend of mine reached out to me and said, "Hey, Rain, let's do a gratitude practice." And similar to what you're saying, Kristina, I am a relatively grateful person and I have gratitude in my life in general, but never had I shared with another person who was also sharing
Interesting.
with me consistently. And
Interesting.
it
Yeah, it
completely
feels
changed my
different.
life.
Yep,
Yeah.
me too. Me too. It feels different, but I didn't know why or what was going on. But I was like, this works better than any other, than just like writing it in a journal by myself. This works way better.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, yeah. But I think the thing that I'm the most grateful right now is just where I'm at in my life. Like if you had said to me last August, oh, yeah, you're going to be launching a podcast January 2nd, which is my late husband's birthday, I would have said, what? Like, what are you talking about? And I think I feel really grateful to make a particular dream come true and realizing that sometimes you just have to be brave and take one step at a time to accomplish what you want to accomplish. So I'm feeling really grateful about, all these amazing people that I'm meeting, including you, all the amazing conversations that we're having, and hopefully, all the good messages that we are helping to spread in the world, and we're inspiring, in particular women. I think I just when I decided to do a podcast, I just felt very strongly called to do a podcast for women because I feel like women, we have esteem issues and we're not as bold as men a lot of times. We aren't. And it's interesting because I actually was just listening to another podcast and they were saying that as far as new businesses go, only 13% of them are started by women. And I thought to myself, what it like that's just not right. But I know that it's because we just sometimes don't have the courage and the strength that men seem to have more easily. And I really want to bring other women along on the journey. I married a man much older than myself, 24 years, and when our son was 5, he was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. And I can't tell you how many times, Rain, people said to me, I don't know how you do it. You're so brave. You're this, you're that. Well, I didn't start out that way. It was very scary, and it was a long
Mm.
journey of trying to become brave one tiny step at a time. And I want to share that information, and I want to encourage other women to show up in brave ways. And that bravery shows up in all kinds of ways. I mean, the
Mm.
one way it showed up for me was my husband's diagnosis and a 12-year journey of
Mm.
caregiving to him and our son. And one of the very first things that helped me was Oprah had come out with her book. Remember her book club? And her
Yes.
book was Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth, Awakening to Your Life's Purpose. My brother had given me The Power of Now, the book by
Mm-hmm.
Eckhart Tolle, and I didn't understand it. I'll be honest with you, it made absolutely zero sense to me. But when Oprah did her book club, every week I sat down on the computer and I listened to her and Eckhart talk about it and explain it
Wow.
chapter by chapter, 10 chapters, 10 weeks. And by the end of it, I got it. And that was one of the most major tools that helped me get through my husband's illness was that book.
That is so exciting. And tell us what message in that book really fulfilled that need for bravery and transformation in you.
So the problem is that I mean it sounds so easy, obviously, that we need to live more in the present, and it's a practice. So we don't just instantly start living in the present. Most of us live either in the past or in the future. So if we live in the past, we're always thinking about things how they used to be. We can get kind of depressed, and then if we're always looking ahead to the future, we can get quite anxious. So if we don't want those two things, we
Mhm.
we have to just start slowly working on trying to live in the present. And that was really a great survival tool for me because I could say today, like we had a good day. Yes, my husband is forgetful, but or we're taking a vacation and this is great. We're not going to worry about tomorrow. We're not going to dwell on how it used to be. We're going to enjoy today. And another girlfriend of mine who's just still a very, very dear friend, it's actually her birthday today.
Oh my
um, her,
gosh.
her husband was diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease around the same
Mm.
time that my husband was diagnosed, and we went through the journey together, and we learned how to live in the now. We learned not to put things off. I think a lot of times people think I'm going to live forever. I'll do that in 20 years or 30 years. And
Mhm.
if something's really, really important to you, I mean, it could be anything. It could be traveling, or it could be starting a business, or whatever it is. Don't put it off, you
Mhm.
know, because you got to live for the now. And we really
Yeah.
learned that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. That's such an important message. And I imagine it's incredibly helpful with somebody who has Alzheimer's. So you're caring for your husband, he has early onset Alzheimer's, and what more than being in the present can you really do? And I understand there are therapies and different approaches medically, but in terms of your relationship, I can imagine that being a great asset to be present with him and with yourself and your
Absolutely,
son.
absolutely, because there's still a lot of joy interacting with that person. Even when they start to lose their verbal abilities, there
Mm.
still can be a lot of joy. Even just with things like dancing together. That I have some pictures of us, couple of them, different times of us dancing together a few years before he died, and we could really connect in that
Mm.
way.
Mm. What a gift.
Hmm. Yeah.
So precious. I'm so glad you're sharing this with us.
Yeah, yeah. And that was, one of the times that I did do I was pretty good about my gratitude practice during that time. And
Mhm.
I will be completely honest, there was one period of time where I couldn't do it. And I
Mm.
was in a bit of a depression, and which is normal, considering the
Yeah.
circumstances. And I remember saying to a friend, well, I can't get myself to write in my gratitude journal. And she said, just stop, let it go. You're beating
Mhm.
yourself up. just put it aside for a couple of weeks and then get back to it. And then, it's okay. And so I did. And that's an important lesson I like to tell people too is, some of these things that we do, there could be a time in our life where we literally can't find something to be grateful for.
Mhm.
And sometimes we have to just surrender, let it go, and come back to it at a different time.
Yes. Yes. Well put.
Mm-hmm.
We're free. We're all free. We're free beings.
Right, right, for sure.
So, what was a healing moment or something with your late husband that happened that touched you in a healing way?
Oh, I guess, there are a lot of healing things. I mean, I think I could think of several stories. One is, I remember we were moving to be closer to his family, and I was packing up the house and I was packing up his office. He was a retired financial advisor
Mm.
and he had managed our investments. Thank goodness I was also a financial advisor, so I was able to take over from there. But as I was packing up the office, I found these little yellow sticky notes, like in random places, like all throughout his office. And they all said, I want to take care of my wife and my son. I need to take care of my wife and
Mm.
my son. And just, I felt that on a very, very deep, almost spiritual level. And even though he was losing his mental faculties, I felt this deep connection and love with him that was very healing. What happens sometimes with Alzheimer's too is that their physical body remains, but you feel they're still alive, but you start feeling very disconnected from them because they are not mentally very present. So interestingly enough, I really had dreaded the day that he would pass away, which was
Mm.
2 years ago now. But that day ended up being one of the most healing experiences of my life. He had a very peaceful passing. And again, like that was another thing I could have projected out and worried endlessly about him having an uncomfortable death. And it wasn't, and I'm glad I didn't waste any worry on that. It was very, very peaceful, the passing. And I I actually said a prayer right after he passed away and I said I really want and need a sign from you, which, I know some people may or may not believe, but this is part of my healing journey, so I'm just going to put it out there.
Yes, please.
So, yeah, so the hospital had just called, it was COVID. They'd said he'd had 24 to 48 hours to live. It was the middle of the night. I went home to get like 4 hours of sleep. And of course, I was breathing steadily. I thought, okay, he's going to be okay. I can be there with him. But no, often people leave their bodies when we're not around. So,
Yeah.
I got the phone call from the hospital, and I said the prayer, and I was also feeling very guilty that I hadn't been there at the time. But he was 100% unconscious, and when they did the COVID test, he didn't even flinch, and they said, you know, he's already gone. He's breathing, but he's not. There's no recognition. There's nothing. So,
Mm.
I asked him for a sign. Like I prayed, and I just said, God and Bill, I really need some kind of sign to comfort me. And I saw instantly a picture of an eagle came into my head, which just seemed kind of ridiculous. And so I had to go to the hospital, and the person was driving, and I didn't tell anyone about this vision that I had. I've never been a person to have visions. I'm not psychic. I'm not none of that stuff. That's not me. But I think I needed this. So I was looking at my phone, and the driver just said, look at that tree over there. There's an eagle. There's a bald eagle in that tree.
No.
And I went, that's it. I said, that's it. That's a sign.
Mm.
That's it. And that was like a huge healing for me, right there,
Mhm.
it was interesting because it was an almost instant healing. It's a very unusual kind of healing, right? In a very different way. But
Mm.
it gave me closure that he was okay and that he was in a better place, and I could heal and move on with
Mhm.
my life.
Yeah.
I think he knew, but then the healing did continue. It's interesting, Rain, because he appeared in my dreams for about a year,
Mm.
and he was perfect and whole, and it would just be us, and with our son it would just be like business, like life before Alzheimer's. So we were always visiting and having fun, and that was part of the healing for me too. My husband was trying to help me heal from the whole journey by spending more time with me in my dreams. Again, like I don't know, like I've never had these experiences in my life, so you can interpret them how you will, but it was very healing for me. And then I got remarried this summer, and the dreams stopped.
Congratulations.
Oh,
Oh.
thank you. Yeah, but the dream stopped, and but I think that was also, I think we have to be open to however healing is going to show up in our life, because it might not be in the way we expect.
True.
Yeah. Had I not
Beautiful
been open to
words.
all these experiences, you know, and I think that's part of why I have healed really well, and I'm at peace
Mhm.
with the whole situation, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. It does. I'm so glad you have that peace.
Mhm.
And it sounds like you've been paying attention every step of the way.
Yeah, and it really, really did start with, the book and Eckhart, and like learning to be present and learning a little bit about meditation. And I mean, whether you pray or
Mhm.
meditate, I don't care what you do, but spend some time by yourself being quiet, and there's just so much healing power in all of that, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah. And then
Definitely.
interestingly enough, I have to say, Rain, the second thing that I feel like a lot of healing is going on for me is, and I just would have never, again, this kind of came out of left field. It just, my son graduated from high school. I got remarried. I'm in a new chapter. And I was like, I don't want to work in finance. I don't, like, that doesn't feel right. So what am I going to do?
Mm.
And so I did a lot of soul searching and came up with the whole podcast and helping other women and encouraging them to be brave, because I didn't start out brave either. And it's, if I can do it, you can do it too.
Mhm.
And, but interestingly enough, I'm finding that being an entrepreneur is really one of the most powerful ways to have spiritual growth. I mean, your weaknesses are really in your face.
Oh, yes, I love it. You were speaking words of wisdom.
Yeah, and I never anticipated that. But I feel like when you start your own business, and how whatever shape or form that is, and in my case, it's starting up a podcast, you really have to face a lot of your fears, and it's just, there's a lot of growth in all of that.
Mhm. Mhm.
And especially in podcasting, because in podcasting, all of your mistakes are public mistakes. The whole world knows you made a mistake. And you have to learn how to be okay with that. And so I think that part of my healing journey has also been to learn to be authentic to myself and not worry about what other people think. And I had to make some tough decisions along the way
Mhm.
with my husband's journey as well, that were maybe a bit unconventional. I
Mhm.
think that was part of my healing journey too, was learning to trust myself, learning to be
Mhm.
authentic to who I really am, and not be dictated by other people's opinions.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm with you in what you're saying, and I'm so curious about what are some moments or a moment when you had to trust yourself and go with something that was unconventional.
Yeah. So, I mean, I could tell actually many stories, but I was definitely on a spiritual journey in my late 20s, and reading a lot of books, spending a lot of time, actually meditating quite a lot too, and doing a bunch of things. And when I met my husband, he was 24 years older than me. That was very unconventional. It was going against the
Yeah.
grain,
Hmm.
and but it felt right. And I just decided that I just knew that it was the right decision. And we both knew that we were married within 6 months of meeting each other on a hike on
Wow.
Mount Rainier. And I think we just knew in our hearts that we were meant to be together. The age didn't matter. And it's interesting because I think, Rain, that once you get more comfortable with your authentic self, and how you get comfortable with your authentic self is by sitting quietly by yourself alone in a room. You
Mm.
do. It's one of the ways. But when you get more comfortable with your authentic self, I think other people sense it. And I think that what happens is I never had anyone come up to me and say, wow, why did you marry him? He's a lot older than you. Like, what were you thinking? Not ever once. But I think that both he and I had such a strong conviction that this was our path and we were being authentic to ourselves. And I think people sense that. And
Hmm.
then they accept it. They almost don't even challenge it. And it's almost like they know if they challenge it, you're so authentic to yourself. You are just radiating that, and
Hmm.
you can say that about anything in life. And it's almost like a commitment too, like with the podcast. You just make that commitment to do it, and there's just no turning back. Like you, and nobody questions you because you just are so determined that everyone's like, she's definitely doing it. We're not even going to question her.
Hmm. Yes, yes, I see your determination and your
Mhm.
generosity of spirit. And the podcast that you're creating, She's Brave, is an amazing offer to the world. I'm so happy for you and so excited about what you're sharing.
Yeah, because what I'm deeply curious about is how somebody got through a tough moment or a tough time in their life. Like, how did
Mhm.
they obtain the courage? And I think sometimes people think, oh, well, it's something grand, it's jumping out of a plane, it's climbing Mount Everest, but it's really not. I mean, it can be. Yes, it's that too, but it's you and me and, everyone out there that has to make brave decisions every day. The decision maybe to get a divorce, or
Mhm.
the decision to quit your job. And I like to dig into, like, how did that person get the strength to do that, and the
Mhm.
courage, and where did that come from? So the podcast is really not about me. So I
Mhm.
feel slightly uncomfortable talking to you because I'm having to talk about me. And I like to hear other people's stories. I don't want to talk about me. I want to talk about them.
Mm. Oh, well, I admire your bravery and your courageous heart for sharing so much with me right now. And I love the way that you're going about bringing us into your world and bit by bit showing us how bravery has really opened up and blossomed for you through your experiences. And not that you were ever not brave, just there are these defining moments where you got to decide, this feels right to marry this man, and it feels right to him. And I'm going to be authentic to myself and be with the person I want to be with. Right there, I feel so much courage and bravery. And I get kind of warm and tingly in my body as I consider your steps through this world.
Yeah, definitely. And then just me wanting to really share that with other women and take them by the hand and say, you can do this too. It's within you as well.
Mhm. That's
And
right.
let's find a way to do it.
Yep. It's within all of us. So, as we're speaking about Alzheimer's, I know that there are many different kinds of dementia that a person can go through. So, do you have some defining characteristics of when you're describing early onset Alzheimer's, what that meant for you and your husband, how you knew it was Alzheimer's and not something else, or just any details about that?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that Alzheimer's did run in his family. So
Mhm.
that was a possibility that we knew. It just came on a lot earlier than it had ever come on with anyone else in his family. So we did know that that was a possibility that could happen. Generally, a lot of people will say, use the word Alzheimer's and dementia like interchangeably. The thing is they can't really prove whether you have what kind of memory loss you have unless they do an autopsy after you pass away. So you can make that choice to do that or not do that. But ultimately, they all manifest in different ways. It can be very unpredictable from one person to the next, regardless of whether you want to call it Alzheimer's, somebody has Alzheimer's or dementia. That doesn't mean that they're going to behave a certain way. Everybody's kind of across the board. The first thing that I started to notice was just he would forget things like we were out for dinner. I think the very defining moment for me was we were out for a dinner date and which we loved to do, go out for dinner and then do a movie or a play or something. And we were looking at our menus and we put our menus down. And then he looked at me and he said, "Did we order yet?" And I
Mhm.
just knew like that's it. Like when
Mhm.
people it's really different than say like forgetting your keys or like, oh, I don't remember where I left my keys. Like
Mhm.
the thing is we as humans, especially in today's world, we have so much information flying at us through our phones and our computers and televisions and life is bombarding us, so we can get forgetful and lose things, and that's actually very normal. But when a person has memory loss, it's a different kind of
Mhm.
memory loss. Like I would say to him, you know, Wills and I, which is my son's name, Wills and I are going to meet some friends in the park. And he wouldn't remember, you
Mhm.
know, 10 minutes later or half an hour later, he wouldn't know where we were. So it's quite different.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. And I admire your ability to pay attention so closely and really notice what was going on.
Yes and no. I'm going to be honest here too. I was in denial. Denial is a coping mechanism, and
Mhm.
it's okay. It's
Mhm.
okay to be in denial for a while because sometimes you need some time to process it.
Mhm.
So he was forgetful. We didn't do anything about it for a while, but my friends began saying to me, he's definitely has a memory issue and you should really take him to the doctor. So I did, and he got on medication, but at that time, the medication was really not they haven't really been able to prove the effectiveness of pretty much all Alzheimer's medications. I do have a lot of hope for the future. It seems like there will be some significant breakthroughs in the next 10 to 20 years. There will be medications that basically stop the process. So people won't have to get that disease
Wow.
anymore.
Mhm.
I do believe that that is coming. But we're not there yet.
Mhm. That would be phenomenal. What a breakthrough.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, if somebody listening is going
Mhm.
through this with somebody that they care about and they are having a moment of feeling or thinking, I'm not brave. I don't know. How do I find my own bravery or courage? Like if somebody's in that kind of self-inquiry about
Mhm.
their own heart and loving acceptance and these things that you're so beautifully illustrating, what would you say to that person who is looking for some bravery?
I would say it's okay to be scared. I was terrified in the beginning. Get the help that you need. I was in therapy throughout the whole thing. And if you don't like your therapist, find a different one and work with a therapist that really resonates with you to help you support it. My friends were amazing. Do not discount the value of your friends and your family to help support you through the process. Do not be shy about going to your medical doctor and getting medication if you are having anxiety or depression. I don't think there's any shame or going to a naturopath and getting, some medical help. Those are all and it's going to take a while to not be fearful. Like it's not like you just, oh, I'm not fearful anymore. You just slowly start to do the things like the gratitude exercises and some prayer and meditation. And then, I look back on my journey, Rain, and I don't think I connected enough. I mean, I did a lot. I'm talking about a lot of things, but I think you can't have too much connection when you're going through this journey, and you're not alone. You are not alone. And, being in a support group again, like find other people. Like my girlfriend was going through the same journey. Husband had a different disease, but we went through the same journey where our husbands were not ever going to get well, and there was no cure for both those diseases. So, to have a community to, yeah, and it's terrifying. Yeah, it is not fun, but Rain, I have always believed that everything happens to us for our benefit. So I always believed that this was the spiritual journey that I was supposed to be on and that I was supposed to learn from. And it was just a spiritual journey that I was on, and it was okay. But I didn't start out that way. It took me a while.
Oh, I hear such gracious clarity that you're sharing. Thank you so much. It's just so kind sharing your
And there's so
journey.
many, I mean, I have to just say too, like these days, back when my husband was diagnosed, podcasts didn't even exist. Now there are these amazing podcasts out there for people who are caregivers. I'm sure there's even ones for people who are caregivers to a spouse or a parent with Alzheimer's. And I think I really do. Like, I wish I could give you some names, but I just think that joining some kind of community even through a podcast, listening to other people's journeys, and then connecting with other people who are going through the same thing at the same time, that is so healing. And that gives you so much courage to get through the next day.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, I see how that works. I've witnessed how that works in other parts of my life. I don't have an Alzheimer's story that's personal to me. A neighbor once, but that was a very different kind of a situation. But in general, yes, the support groups I can relate to personally, having that closeness with somebody who can walk through the journey with you, who also understands, who also has their story.
And, sometimes having some humor in it. I mean, I remember one time, one of my girlfriends, her father had Alzheimer's. And so we were all having lunch outside, on a sunny summer day. And it was me and my husband and her dad. And at one point she just looked at me and started laughing. And she said, "You want to go to Hawaii? Let's just go to Hawaii. Let's just forget about all this nonsense and let's just get on a plane." And it just, we just started giggling and laughing. We just, put some humor in the situation because we really did feel that way. I mean, and you got to get over the shame of it too. Being a caregiver is really, really hard. And there's many times where you don't want to be a caregiver. You don't. But sometimes just speaking it out aloud takes away its power. And I think that's what happened in that little scenario was she spoke aloud. "I don't like doing this. I don't want to do this anymore." and made a joke out of it. And it kind of took its power away and made us feel a little better,
I get it. So wise. Once again, so wise, Kristina. What if for just a moment we take the perspective of your husband or somebody who is having an onset of Alzheimer's or memory loss, and there's an unknown quality in the beginning, which actually can continue for quite some time, as I understand it. But you have such a personal experience. What would you say could be helpful or healing or supportive for the person who thinks, "Oh, wait, maybe there's something happening here"? that I need to pay attention to or not? There's kind of that mystery.
Yeah, of course. I think a lot of people are very, very afraid of Alzheimer's disease.
Mhm.
I'm not. It's
Mhm.
interesting. I mean, I was in the thick of it. I saw my husband go through the journey for 12 years. I'm not afraid of it at all, which is really a powerful thing to say
Yes.
because I think he enjoyed life. I think
Mm.
it was okay with him, and he still continued to enjoy life right up to the end.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be a horrible journey. I'm not afraid of it. Like, if I get forgetful, I think we still are, in essence, ourselves. And it's just, we're just, in some ways, we're living even more in the moment and in the present. And things, little things, mean everything. Like, eventually he had to go to a care home, but there were magical things like people bringing in baby bunnies that we could like hold in our lap and
Mm.
pet,
Mhm.
and all the Alzheimer's patients, and how much fun we had, and music on New Year's Eve and getting up and dancing together. He still had he still had a beautiful life.
Mhm.
And that's what I would say to someone who feels like, oh no, I might be going down this path, but it doesn't have to be a bad path. It doesn't.
Mm. Thank you for that. What a blessing. What a blessing. So I hear so many brave moments you're sharing, moments of courage, moments of healing, so much gratitude and loving acceptance. From this conversation, or even from your entire life, do you have a favorite moment of healing that still lights you up inside?
Oh, wow. Um, oh, I mean, I think there could be many. One would definitely be my husband's passing, but I'm going to tell another story now since we've told that one.
Mhm.
This one, my mother was she was quite controlling and critical when I was a child. And she wasn't the best mother. She did her best. And that's when my son was born, I had some anxiety, and my mother came and stayed with us, actually on 3 different occasions. She would stay for a few weeks and then go home for a few weeks and then come back for a few weeks because, and I found her presence to just be so comforting. And
Mm.
so it got me through, those early first few months where you feel like, I have a newborn and I don't know what to do. I don't know what I'm doing, how this works. Am I going to be a good mother? This is so hard. And we she had never really opened up to me, but during those times we started talking and opening up, and we ended up telling each other everything about each other, everything, and things that she didn't know about me and things that I didn't know about her. And we healed, like our
Mm.
relationship healed.
Magic.
It was not a very good relationship before that. I was not close to my mother. I was always close to my dad. And because he was not, he was easygoing. And so there was something, and I'm really grateful for that, that I had a child, and that brought on a whole new relationship with my mother, and
Mm.
it healed all those childhood wounds. Like, it was really, really beautiful, and it's been good ever since.
Oh, wow. Oh, what a beautiful healing moment. I'm so glad you told that story, and it also brings your son in even more present into all that you've shared.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
and your
Yeah.
mom, and so the multi-generations. Here we have 3 generations, your parents, your marriage, your child.
And I never, and my mother has changed so much too. Like, she did a lot of work on herself. And as my son was growing up, he just graduated from high school, and he's doing a gap year, and he's traveling and doing some
Mm.
fun things. And he's already in the college that he wants to go to in Colorado for the 1st of August and doing great. But yeah, my mother did say to me several times when my son was growing up, she said, "You're so much of a better parent than I ever was."
Mm.
And I would say, it's okay. You did the best that you could at, you know, and I do think we do have a lot better resources and better information on how to be better parents than our parents didn't have a lot of support. They didn't have, and they also didn't have books and they didn't have the internet, and they were
Mm-hmm.
just kind of muddling through it all, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so, so generous of you. So kind and
It
loving.
was generous of her to like just own it and just
Mm-hmm.
say, like, you know, I wasn't that good of a parent, like, but I'm just gonna own it and I'm gonna say to you, like, you're doing great. And I mean that's super healing in of itself too.
Yes. Yes. And I love your sparkle as you share this story and all of your stories, your sparkly laugh and smile. And
Yep, that's
oh,
me.
oh, good way to own it. Aw. So let's share how people might get in touch with you if they're interested in your podcast, if they're interested in connecting with you more. How can people find you?
Yeah. So if you want to listen to my podcast, it's basically on all the platforms you can imagine, but I'll just say Apple and Spotify for sure. And it's called She's Brave Podcast with Kristina Driscoll. And also, if you want to connect with me, I would love to connect with you, help you on your journey, or hear your story of bravery. I'm always looking for good stories, and you can connect with me on Instagram at She's Brave Podcast. And that's another way you can just directly message me and I'll get right back to you. Or I have a Facebook group and it's just a She's Brave podcast Facebook group. So those are the ways you can reach out. I would love to hear from you. I want to hear your story. I want to support you and be with you on your journey.
Wonderful. And I imagine on your podcast, there are and will continue to be so many stories of people's brave moments or their process with understanding what that is for them. Am I getting the right idea of what you'll be sharing on your show?
Absolutely. And I feel like we all have a brave story in us. And
Mhm.
I love learning. And I feel like, in some cases, maybe people have kept something inside. And again, getting back to like, speaking it and talking about it can really take away some of the power and shame of a certain situation.
Mhm.
But yes, I love that is the whole mission is to interview women and find out how they have learned to be brave and resilient along the way because we don't start out that way necessarily. Most of us we learn. And how do we learn? And maybe by listening to other people's stories we too can gain more courage.
Mm, beautiful. Thank you so much, Kristina. It's been such a delight to be here with you.
Thank you, Rain.
Thank you so much for listening. It has been a great joy to have your presence here in this podcast. I welcome you to celebrate the joy and wisdom in your life exactly as it is. And I welcome you to feel loved, fully loved, exactly as you are. www.rainelizabeth.org